So now we're going to talk about JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation. JSON has become an extremely popular way of serializing data for transport. So oftentimes when you're working with application programming interfaces or API, basically functions that applications or web applications will expose to use their functionality, it's going to communicate with you using JSON. JSON will be the format of the data. Now, what is JavaScript Object Notation? Well, JavaScript, the language, has a really good way of serializing data, both lists and dictionaries. And it's been settled upon in many ways through a de facto standard of using JSON to communicate data back and forth between applications. It's the language that applications use to talk with each other. So having that common language is important. And a lot of times when you use web services or APIs from web services in Python, you're going to get data back in Python, and you need to be able to consume that in your application. So let's talk about JSON for a minute and how to parse it and how to handle it. So let's go to Chrome. And part of your lab this week is going to be using a service to get information about email addresses. So we will let Chrome load here. I think I double-clicked it. There we go. And I'm not going to talk about getting the data right now, but there's a web service that we can use. Here we go. Called TrueMail. And TrueMail has an open API, so you don't need to sign up for anything. The one thing I wanted to avoid this week was you having to sign up for anything new. It has an API where you can pass an email address. In this case, the email address I use on YouTube to post these videos is mdctryc@gmail.com. And we want to find out some information about the email address. So it has an API where if you pass in an email address, it'll pass you back data about that email address. And in this case, it passes back data in a JSON format. So right here, what's displayed on the web page, this is the JSON data that was passed back. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, I know you're familiar with Python lists and dictionaries, but this is the notation for a dictionary in JavaScript. And that's all that makes up JavaScript object notations. It's a series of lists and dictionaries. So we have key value pairs here. Let me zoom in. So you have a key value pair where your key is address and your value is mdctryc@gmail.com. You have another key here of username, and your value is mdctryc. Another key of domain, and your value is gmail.com. A key of MD5 hash, and an MD5 hash value. A key of suggestion, and then no value here, so just a blank or empty string. A key of valid format, and a value that's a Boolean value of true. A key of deliverable, another Boolean value of true, a key of full inbox, Boolean value of false, and so on and so forth. So this is not Python code, right? This is JavaScript. So we need to be able to translate JSON into Python so that we can access these things through variables. So this is a string, and I'm just going to copy and paste it into some Python code. So here, if you're going to use JSON, you need to import the JSON library. Import JSON will be what we use here. And I'm just going to call result text equal to the JSON string I got back. And we have to use single quotes because remember we're receiving double quotes back. So I've just pasted this as a literal string. So result text is this. And I'm going to wrap, here we'll toggle word wrap so that you can see the string here. So this is all line 3. I've just wrapped the text. So now we have this result text, and we want to access this as a dictionary in Python. And we can do this using the JSON library. So there's two functions in the JSON library that you'll use: load s, load string, and dump s, dump string. So it's not loads and dumps, it's load string and dump string. So here, if we want to place all of this into an email info variable, we can use json.load string, and then we'll just pass in result text. So what is this going to do? This is going to take this string here and it's going to convert it to a Python dictionary. So now if you remember how to access items in a Python dictionary, if not, go back to our previous lessons to refresh your memory on how to do that. We can access any of the keys and the values by using the Python dictionary notation. So if we wanted to print the address, so print address is equal to email info address. So what are we doing here? We're printing to the screen a literal string address, and then we're saying, okay, access the email info variable, and for the key address, give me the value. So in this case, the value is going to be mdctryc@gmail.com. And you could use any of the keys in here. So what load s does, or load string does, is it takes this and it just converts it to a Python dictionary that we can use typical standard Python dictionary notation for. So if we save this and run it, what should it say? It should say print address colon and mdctryc@gmail.com. So let's try it. What did I call this file? My JSON. All right, we run it and excellent. We see address mdctryc@gmail.com. So that's how to access items in a dictionary. So let's say we wanted, you'll see a good one here is free. We need to know whether or not this is a free email address. So we see it's gmail.com. So let's run this. Oh, we got an error. I forgot that we have to convert this to a string. So we'll convert this value to a string and we'll run it. All right, we see, sorry, I should name it free address. So we're saying here, free address is the value for the key string. Let me play this out. So we run it again. And is this a free email address? True. So what have we done here? We've gone to the email info variable. We said, get me the value for the key of string free right here, and it's going to pull the value of true. We're converting it to a string, which I should have done in the first place, and we're putting to the screen free address, the string conversion value of the value within email info for the key free. Now that's it. Now let's say we want to write this back to JSON, but we want to change something. So let's say we know this isn't a free email address. We can go ahead and change it. So email info, just like we would write to a dictionary, free equals false. Okay, so what we're doing is we're saying, nope, we know for a fact that this isn't a free email address. We're going to write it back. Let's see here. I want to show you the progress of it. So this is the old free email address. So this is going to print true. This is the new free address, and this is going to print false. Let's also print the old JSON too. Old JSON. And that's going to be result text. And then we're going to do one last thing here. After we print this, new text, new JSON equals JSON.dumpString. email info. And our new JSON, I'll walk through this in one moment, is going to be new JSON. All right. So what did we do here? So walk through the whole application again. We had this string that we got from the website. It was JSON. It was information about my email address, and we're loading it in here using JSON.loadString into the variable email info. So we have this string literal saved to result text, and we're passing that into JSON.loadString, and we're loading it, converting it to a Python dictionary object, and that's saved to the variable email info. On line 7 here, I'm printing this string literal result text to the screen. So old JSON will just show that string to the screen. And then we're saying your old free address value will be the value of email info at key free. So that's going to be true. Now I'm changing the value of email info at key free to false. And then I'm converting all of this email info dictionary back to a JSON string, and I'm saving it to new JSON. And to show that our changes worked, I'm going to print to the screen the new free address value. This will show false. And my new JSON value, which will show, basically it'll be result text, but instead of true right here at the very end, it's going to say false. So let's see if it worked. Great. All right, so let's walk through the results. Old JSON was the string we pasted in there and saved to result text, where free is equal to true. Our old free address value is true. And then we changed it in the Python dictionary email info. Now we wrote that to the screen. The new free address value is equal to false. And then we converted email info back to JSON. And we're putting that to the screen. And this is our new JSON. So if we were sending data back to a server, for instance, we could send this string, this new JSON, back to the server, and the server would be able to understand it. But in this case, we've converted the value of that last key value pair of the dictionary with key free from true to false. All right, so that's how to handle JSON. There's really two methods you're concerned with on the JSON object. One is load string. You're converting JavaScript object notation, or JSON, from a string to a Python dictionary. And then dump string, you're taking a Python dictionary and you're converting it to a JSON object, which is a string. And that string, that's this common language that can be used to communicate with web servers. So we're going to take this a step further, and we're going to now pull data down from the server. So instead of result text here, remember last week, in the last lesson, we went over requests. So let's combine the two. We don't have to go and manually type in an address each time we want to access this information. We can access the API directly in our code. And we can do this using the requests object. So remember requests from last week. And we're gonna keep using result text. Let's just comment this out for now so you can see what I'm doing. So let's go back to Google, and how does this work? Let's copy the URL. So result equals, so res equals requests dot get. So we're doing a get request to the server, and we're going to paste in this get request. All right, so we're going to tell Python, hey, go grab the data from this web page. The data should be exact. This is what Python's going to pull right here. So what we want to do is make sure that everything was okay. So we received a 200 okay back. If we didn't, raise an exception. So remember, Raise for status is the method you call. So if, for instance, we got a 404 error or a not authenticated or not authorized error, it would just stop the application. And then finally, so now we have this result back from the server. Now we want to, instead of having to paste the string in here, we can just write res.text. All right, and this will grab the text off of the request object. And that's it. Everything else remains the same. So instead of putting that string in there, we're going to grab it directly from the web server. So if we run this application, if I didn't mess it up again and put an error in, we should see the exact same result. And there we go. So let's walk through. Let's look at each line. So before we were pasting the string directly in to result text. This JSON, well, this time we've grabbed it from the server, and it's exactly the same. Okay, that's good. Our old free address, well, free, the key free, and the value true, that's that key value pair. It's exactly the same. And so here, the old free address value is true. We've changed it now, so the new free address value is false, and our new JSON matches. So this is all you have to do. JSON is super simple. So again, you just grab the URL. We call raise for status just to be safe. And then now we just take the result text and res, our response, and we just put it into the variable result text, and all of our code remains the same. So instead of pasting that string literal in, we're just having the website do it for us. So that's all for JSON for this week. It can get a lot more complicated. And again, we're using a web service that doesn't require any authentication or an API key. A lot of times web services will require some sort of API key that will track your usage, make sure that you're not calling the API too much. A lot of times these web services will charge you based on how many API calls you make. I would just say, again, being a good neighbor to this web service, TrueMail offers this for free without an API key. Don't make thousands of calls. Don't put this in a loop. Your IP address will most likely be banned automatically. Again, do this on one-off instances. Now, I would encourage you to try out other services. Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, Flickr, all of these services offer APIs. And when you're thinking about your final project, you're going to want to include, there's going to be a requirement to include one or two APIs that pull data about some information you're trying to gather. So TrueMail is a good example, but I would encourage you to look at others. There's plenty of other services. A lot you do have to sign up for. So let's say you want to pull Twitter feeds and pull the JSON from Twitter feeds. You have to sign up because there's a lot of people that abuse the system. So to do that, create a developer account and sign up. Same with most of the services. So that's it. Next video will just be discussing your lab, which is going to combine the command line, requests, and JSON handling.